Job approval ratings for your head coach. Just what we started talking about last January. It really caught on, so I wanted to bring it back, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth. And we're just looking at your head coach. And I'm not necessarily doing this like the mood tracker. I'm doing it more from our vantage point. Pretend like we're real clear politics over here, and we're running real time up to the second job approval metrics for your head coaches. And I want to start in Austin, Texas, and I want to start with Steve Sarkisian. And let me first say, I'm giving Sark a B-, much to the chagrin of one Latia Carter out there. I'm going to give Sark a B-. Believe in things like I believe in teams in the state of Texas. Texas, since 2010, producer Jesse walks in today. He says, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "I bet I will." And he said, "I got records, win totals from every Texas team since 2010. It sounds a little something like this: 5, 8, 9, 8, 6, 5, 5, 7, 10, 8, 8, 5, 8. Which leads to the following question: what is Texas? There is a school of thought out there that I don't particularly believe in, but the school of thought nonetheless goes like this. Maybe Texas just isn't a power program. Maybe Texas just isn't a place where you should have high expectations. Maybe history says Texas is a place that's not necessarily built to win championships. They're not built to do what Georgia's doing right now. It's just not in them. I dismiss that. I don't believe that. I believe what this little Post-it note says here. These numbers are real. I can't deny these numbers, but I can also look at these numbers and just say, this is crippling amounts of underachievement. That's all that is. You will never convince me the University of Texas doesn't have the resources to compete at the highest level, because I know what the resources are and I know they have them. So I dismiss that they just can't do it. Remember the old adage around here: can't, cannot, and have not, two different things. Texas has not. It's not that they cannot. So with that in mind, how do I give Sark a B-? Well, it's a healthy balance of two things. It's a healthy balance of still not being totally sold and overly impressed with the on-field product, but being willing to give him time. With the other side of the seesaw, and the other side of the seesaw, I see seated over there a couple of top 5 recruiting classes. I'm going to give you some time to yell. Hold on. Some of you may not know what I'm doing right now. I'm just so in tune with certain portions of our audience. Friendly with all of them, but I'm in tune with some portions of our audience to the degree that I know anytime I mention recruiting in Texas, there's like a, Colin, what would you say? Probably like a 17 to 20% chunk of our audience, if they're listening on their phone, if they're watching on YouTube, they just yell, "Well, Stars don't win championships." So I just have taken it upon myself to give you time to yell it, because you're right. Stars don't win championships. It's just a starting point. Now that you've gotten that out of your system, you're done. Okay, let me make my point here for just a second. I know that, but I also know that they are fundamental building blocks. Good football players are fundamental building blocks to having a good football team. And for a while, the problem at Texas was they were not recruiting at an elite level. Some people would lie to you and say Texas was always recruiting at an elite level. No, they weren't. They may have been recruiting at a pretty good level, not necessarily elite. I think Sark's classes, the last 2 classes, are some of the best that they've brought in because they're balanced. They've got some steak mixed in with the cotton candy. It's not just a bunch of perimeter skill guys. A lot of size, a lot of beef on both lines of scrimmage. And with that, we now, at the B- grade, with the B- job approval rating with Sark, we look forward and we ask, are you going to be able to do what none of the previous 2 or 3 staffs have been able to do? And that is develop them? Because there has been talent on campus. Nothing's happened to it once it got there. That's why the NFL draft numbers are an abomination right now. And yet, I look at what's happening out there right now, and I think expectations should be high. You should not ever sacrifice expectations at a place like Texas. And I think you're bringing in the players needed. You know, we're going to talk about a guy later in the show, Isaiah Nayer, who was a receiver who came in from Wyoming and got hurt in fall camp. I have no idea what would have happened if that kid stayed healthy. All I know is Texas didn't even have a 1,000-yard receiver this year, and he may very well have been that and could have been the difference in 2 or 3 games, and we could be talking about 10-win Texas. There were some close losses there. So it's not like there's a long way to go. Like I was looking earlier at, who was it? Michigan State. You know, Michigan State lost a bunch of games last year, and all but one of their losses were by double digits. That's not Texas. Texas's losses, in most cases, were very close. So I don't think that they're just light years away from this thing. But at the same time, I got to give a B- because Sark did not inherit an empty cupboard. There were players there. There are better players there now. They certainly went from 5-7 to 8-5, so that's a year 1 to year 2 improvement. I'm not nearly as down on Steve Sarkisian as a lot of other folks are. I have not made my final judgment on him. And I think that the Mike Norvell protocol should be in effect here. You gave that guy 2 years, and 2 years only, well, you would have sold him down the river. But look what happened to Mike Norvell if you were willing to give him a 3rd year. All of a sudden, he just popped a double-digit win season on you, didn't he? And everybody's changing the tune on Mike Norvell, who I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So, Mike Norvell protocol in effect in Austin, Texas. Next up, let's go to Oxford, Mississippi. Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, and I want you to remember before I give you my grade, this is not static. We're not judging all coaches on the same scale. This is not pro sports. We're judging you based on how you're performing with the resources at your disposal against the backdrop of what historically has been the norm for your program. So at Ole Miss, what has the norm been? The norm has been 7 wins, 7.5 wins to 8 wins on average. That's where they've been, and they've had a couple of really good years. But I'll tell you what they just did. They have had their first ever 10-win regular season under Lane Kiffin. Did you hear what I just said? First ever. They've done this in Mississippi for a while. They've played football there for a while. First ever double-digit win regular season. They've done it some with bowls added in, but never in the regular season. So we got that going for us if we're Lane Kiffin. We got 18 wins the past 2 years. That's pretty good by Ole Miss standards. Now, they started really hot this past year, and they fell off a little bit. And I know that's the most recent thing that you remember in your mind, but I just want you to remember, well, I want to talk to myself because I'm the one who sold them a little bit short in the preseason. I thought they lost a lot in the way of talent. Yeah, sure. But they also lost a lot in the way of what I thought was integral members of their staff. I just thought he was going to have a tough time replacing them. And I'm not saying it was easy for him, but I'm saying if you look in 2021, they led the SEC in total yards per game, leaned very heavily on the pass. And then this year, what'd they do? Well, they transformed their offensive approach to account for the fact that they didn't have the quarterback in Matt Corral that they had the previous year, and all they did was lead Power 5 in rushing offense. And you would have looked at them from a 50,000-foot perspective and said, doesn't look like they really dropped off a whole lot. Well, I mean, that's a testament to Lane Kiffin. Like, if you're looking for reasons to nitpick and downgrade the guy, you'll find them, and that's fine. I'm kind of trying to be fair here. You don't accidentally do that, is my point. And also, they've handled the portal really well. Zach Evans is a guy that they went and got out of the portal this last cycle. I expect them to continue to do that. This is a program rather, still trying to find its way, I think, in the NIL era. But at the same time, let me tell you, there's some talk behind the scenes that Ole Miss is right at the forefront of taking a more revolutionary and long-term sustainable approach to NIL. They're very serious about it. They've got some really big brains in the room right now, and that's all at the behest of the head coach, Lane Kiffin. With all that in mind, I'm giving him a B+, and I teetered on A-, only because I look at what Ole Miss has been historically. I look at what he's done the past 2 or 3 years, and I've asked, is it reasonable for me to be expecting a lot more than he's done? I don't think it is, so I'm giving him a B+. You know, they go to Tulane in week 2 this fall. And then they got Bama on the road in week 4 this fall. I guess they could still start 6-0 again. It'll just be a lot taller a task. Okay, let's head up to Happy Valley, and let's talk about the Fighting Jessies of Penn State, led by one, James Franklin. What kind of grade would you give James Franklin? What kind of job approval rating would you give James Franklin right now? This is yet another coach that's got a little polarization about himself. You notice how there are just some coaches around the country. Kiffin's one of them. James Franklin's absolutely one of them. They've never spent time in prison. You know, they've never broken into your shed out back. But there are people out there who don't like James Franklin. Personally, I think the hairstyle has a lot to do with it. You know, we wake up every morning behind the 8 ball. Those of us in that community. And so I don't want you to feel sorry for us. I just want you to feel a little bit sorry for us. I'm giving James Franklin an A-. Other than making the playoff, which is pretty lofty, what has he not accomplished? That's not a paper pop. That's like a paper wag. But why not? Let's go all the way over the cliff. Let's paper pop it. They won the Big Ten in 2016. He's got a conference championship. He's had 11-win seasons 4 times, Jesse. Is that right? 4 11-win seasons in his tenure there since 2014. Also, 6 of the last 7 recruiting classes have been in the top 15. They just signed Drew Aller, who pretty much the entire world expects to be the best quarterback they've had there. Now we are coming off the decade of dominance that was Sean Clifford in State College, Pennsylvania. The only thing they're missing is punching their ticket to the playoff. That's it. You know what they are? They are Triple H at Madison Square Garden in 1998 against The Rock for the Intercontinental Championship. And I think we all remember how that ended. Triple H gets the powder in the eyes. He's blinded. It's a ladder match. I should mention that. And so he's all the way at the top of the ladder. He's at the top rung, but he's got the powder in his eyes. And so the belt's there. He's grabbing for it. He's reaching it. Where's the belt? That's Penn State. They're in the ladder match. Rock's down for the count. They just pedigreed him. They're all the way up the ladder. They just got to grab the belt. That's it. Jesse, are you actually typing in the teleprompter right now? This is breaking news, isn't it? Penn State has landed Dante Cephas. All 100 players in the transfer portal, top 100, are now committed. Hey, that's a big pickup. That's a really big pickup. Hats off to Manny Diaz for that one. So even as we're speaking, that's the receiver. Yeah, that's right. I'm thinking about Cypress, my bad. Big day. Big day for Penn State there. So James Franklin, I'm not going to bump him from an A- to an A just because he landed a portal player while we were talking about it, but I'm giving him an A-. I think he's doing a really good job up there, and I think that they are setting themselves up. It feels a lot like Florida State. They're setting themselves up for a season that has the most promise. Another word for that is hype. The most hype around it, as we've seen in quite a while. Speaking of Florida State, one of the most natural transitions we've ever made, Mike Norvell also getting an A- from me. Crazy things happen. Just wild things happen if you have a little patience in life and in college football. People doubted the past 2 years. Thankfully, I don't necessarily have to count myself among them. I may have doubted some other things. I didn't doubt Mike Norvell. People don't forget how to coach football. Now, if you wanted to argue, boy, maybe they'll just never get it off the ground there. I don't think you were dumb if you thought that. I just took a wait-and-see approach with him. Mentioned Sark a second ago. It's the same boat I'm in with Steve Sarkisian. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing how things work out. They trusted the process down there. You never saw Mike Norvell waver. I don't think you ever saw a second of him questioning his approach. Those are the kinds of people who ultimately weather the storm. I had a guy tell me one time, one of the best pieces of advice is, it's not the strength of the gale, it's the set of the sail. No one ever takes over a job that's a mess and immediately just every light bulb clicks, every button I press works, and we're fully operational, we're good to go. That was never going to be the case there. And so you needed a guy that had the sail set the right way. There was going to be a strong, strong gale for a while. And the thing about it is your approach was not going to pay immediate dividends because it's impossible. And so people were going to question it. And you got to have a guy with some backbone. You got to have a guy with a spine that's able to look the criticism in the eye and then look straight past the criticism. And Mike Norvell's done that. And now you start to reap some of the rewards. Of course, the people who wanted him out of there are nowhere to be found. That's wonderful. That's great. Portal classes. Number 11 last year. They've currently got the number 1 overall portal class this year. They just had the first 10-win season since back in 2016. They led the ACC in rushing. They have got a bunch of key players returning, not the least of which is the quarterback, Jordan Travis. They got obviously a lot of portal players coming in there. Do you notice this, by the way? Jared Verse, I was certain, I would have bet money that he was going to be off training for the combine by now. No, absolutely not. Notice these guys coming back and guys who want to play there. Not a lot of folks trying to get out of Tallahassee right now. A lot of folks trying to either get into Tallahassee or stay in Tallahassee, and it's not the most flamboyant program in the country right now. It's not the program that runs its mouth the most in the country right now. It is a program that's getting things done. It's a program that's headed in the right direction, trending up, as they would say. So I am giving them an A-. I know that may be a little aggressive for some of you, but I'm giving them an A-. 2023 college football playoff title odds, by the way, I said that really fast. 2023 college football playoff title odds. In other words, your odds of winning the whole thing, Clemson and Florida State, as we mentioned the other night. Same exact odds. How about that? For the first time in a long time, it's not Clemson and then a couple of Grand Canyons and then the rest of the ACC. No, now it's Clemson, Florida State, then the Grand Canyon, at least in the odds-making community. Job approval ratings always go swimmingly. See, that was a layup of an opening to job approval rating season, because what did we didn't go lower than a B-. We will be going lower than B- in the coming shows, because we have to get our hands dirty. It was very easy to ease our way into it there. We got to get our hands dirty. There's a lot to clean up about the sport. So don't worry, we're here to do it.
Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.